Okay, so here we're going to talk about how agroecology, organic farming, holistic farming, regenerative farming, there's a lot of words for it, but basically it means a system of agriculture where you can produce food in a way that you're not degrading the environment, but you're actually improving the environment. So as population increases, you can have more food as time goes on. You know, Zambia, we're a population of about 18 million now.
Yes.
By 2050, which is only in 30 years, we'll be 50 million. This is what the demography department in the statistics office are telling us. So we need to be prepared to have a way of producing food. At the same time, we can produce that food for years and years to come, rather than just now. Then what about the children and their children who are coming? So we need a way to sustain production, not just to sustain it, but actually to increase production over time. So agroecology or regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, they're focused on how do you produce more with the natural resources you have. So here on my farm, I've been working for 12 years, 13 years, trying to get a system which is going to allow me to produce, to have more production in the future with less external input, because things like fertilizer, chemicals, it's been proven so many times through history, and it's being proven up to today in many places around the world, that actually those things degrade the environment. So if they're degrading the environment, what are we going to do in the future? The people who are coming, what are they going to find? Are they going to be able to produce enough food? If they're not, what's going to happen? There's going to be conflict. There's going to be poor standard of living. At the same time, in Zambia, almost 60% of our population is living off agriculture or agriculture-related businesses. And what we've seen as an organization, grassroots, and from the research coming from so many places, it shows that the soil fertility is going down. The use of chemicals is increasing, and the environment at large is suffering. So the whole point of our organization and this farm is to show people ways of improving food production in a sustainable way, so that as we go into the future, you can produce more and more with less inputs. That's the other part of it. Once you follow nature's way, nature's example, what we've seen is, and so many examples around the world exist, of how you can actually get more out of your land with less input. And that's very important for Zambia. Farmers don't have access to finance. They don't have a lot of resources to use. So how do we do this in the Zambian context? And luckily, regenerative agriculture, organic agriculture, offers us an opportunity to produce more while improving the land with less cost and input.
Okay.
So here we are in the pasture, and this is really where it all starts.
Okay.
This is what's going to kickstart the system, and has huge potential here in Zambia, in areas where livestock are kept. So you can see behind us you have some vigorously growing grass and trees. Not too many trees, just a few trees here and there. And I think we all know the advantages of trees in terms of the hydrological cycle, capturing carbon from the atmosphere, mitigating climate change,
Exactly.
improving the climate, creating rain. You know, a lot of people ask, and you know you're an expert in this. A lot of people ask, I ask, you know, go into the rural areas and talk to farmers. They all tell you, no, the reason it's not raining properly is because we've cut the trees. So I say that may be true, but do you know the process? Why? And they have a lot of theories, and most of them are actually correct. But I always just reiterate it, just to be clear. Rain falls, it goes into the ground, then there's no rain for 6 months. How does the Zambezi flow? How does the Chongo River flow? There's been no rain for 7 months, but there's water. How does that happen? And the process is it goes down and then slowly makes its way to the lowest point in the landscape. So it fills up the aquifer, and then the water moves slowly underground to fill up the river. And it comes out to springs in various places along the river to recharge the river. Now, what happens if you don't have any trees and you don't have grass? Another big issue in Zambia is degrading of pastures through burning, through overgrazing, poor grazing management. The soil becomes very hard. So when the rain falls, it just runs into the closest water course and goes straight to the river. Within a week it's in Mozambique, causing floods. Because of our management here in Zambia, it doesn't go in the soil. Whereas if you have a lot of grass, a lot of dry grass on the soil, a lot of trees, makes the soil soft, and the water has a chance to go in and recharge the aquifers. And then it can feed the rivers. But the other very important thing about recharging groundwater, not all of it goes to the rivers, it remains in the aquifer.
Yeah.
When it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, August, September, October, that's the sun. You see all the leaves, green leaves come out. There hasn't been any rain, but the green leaves come out.
Yeah.
So that seeds the clouds. It's taking, the tree roots are taking the water from down, and the evapotranspiration is occurring, giving moisture to the air. Eventually, as it gets hotter, clouds form, and you get localized rainfall. And then the grass grows, and then you get cycling of water, so you can have more rainfall. Now, if you don't have the trees to prime the rain, then we're relying on wind coming in from the Congo, or a freak event of raining coming in from the oceans, carrying the water from the ocean. So it's very true that if we cut our trees, that reduces recharge and initiation of rains. That's maybe part of the reason. I'm not a scientist like you, but to me it could be part of the reason for later and later rains and more erratic rains in Zambia. So that's part of the system to maintain the hydrological cycle, which is very important on a landscape level, very important for us as a country, seeing as we rely on hydroelectric power. It's quite important that we make sure that the water goes in and recharges the rivers, because we're relying on that for electricity to power our industries and ultimately our economy. So you might have to edit this a little bit.
Okay.
It's a bit all over the place.
It's very much okay. You're flowing nicely. So let me ask you a question, Seb. So to put it another way, what you've just explained is saying vegetation helps us to retain water in the ground and also helps us to manufacture localized rainfall. Okay.
I think that's a good summary.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, each farmer in Zambia, each land manager, because not everybody's a farmer, but everyone's, in the rural areas is managing the land in one way or another. We all have a responsibility to make sure that the soil, the landscape is ready to accept that water and take it down, because it's going to do two things once it goes into the soil. One is going to feed the plants, which then feed our animals and the whole system. And two is going to recharge water to make sure, one, we recharge our rivers, and also we have groundwater for irrigation, for tapping for water, for household use, for animals, for livestock. And that's our reservoir, and that's going to create the rain for next year. So that's a fundamental principle of land management, natural resource management, is the water. Without the water, you can't grow anything.
Exactly.
If we're living in a desert, like our neighbors in Botswana, productivity is way down. We don't want to go there. That's where we're heading if we keep on going on the same track. So we need to have plans. How are we going to get this water so it produces growth and also produces rain for the next season, for more growth? If we break that cycle, we're en route to a desert. And nobody wants to live in a desert. Everywhere you find a desert, there's conflict.
Exactly.
So, getting back to this farm. So, one of the main issues with crop production and livestock production. Crop production, you need a lot of nutrients. That's why everybody tells me, you can't grow good crops without fertilizer. Which I've managed to prove very clearly isn't the case. We get very high yields here, and that really starts in the pasture. Because one of the biggest jobs the cattle have for me, and the grazing animals, whether it's sheep, cattle, goats, is they come here every day to eat. and they take the nutrients and organic material and they take it to the crow every day, free of charge. In fact, they want to come here because they want to eat. They bring themselves here, they eat. Some of the manure they leave here for the benefit of the pasture. The rest of the manure
to the farm.
comes to the farm. And we'll show you that, how we manage our manure in the best way to make sure we maintain the nutrients. So this is a system in itself. Some of the manure is re-fertilizing the grass. Then you have tree species here, like these trees behind me. Some of them are nitrogen fixing. Some plants like beans, groundnuts, soybean, cowpea, they're in the family of legumes. And the family of legumes have a very special role in the ecosystem, in the environment. They can produce their own fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer. Unlike grasses, which can't generally produce nitrogen for themselves. So we rely on the legumes to bring in free nutrients. This is why, you know, if you look on the hills around you or in the pastures where somebody's left the land or managing the land properly, things grow very well without any interaction.
Yes.
You're not putting fertilizer there, but it grows very well. And this is how we started agriculture in Zambia. And in some places in Zambia where populations are low, they're still using this. People who leave the land for 20 years, and when you come back after 20 years, the land is virgin, like new, very fertile. So when everything rots down there, becomes manure, all those nutrients enrich the soil. No one's put anything from outside. And that's really what we're trying to replicate here by leaving the trees and the grasses and the shrubs, all of which the animals are benefiting from. And so really, the other thing about the trees is they have very deep roots. So grasses, some of these grasses, they'll go down up to 7 meters, 8 meters down to get the nutrients and the moisture from underground to bring them up for growth. Trees can go up to 30, 40 meters down looking for new nutrients to bring up from down there and bring it to the top. When the leaves and the pods fall, they rot there, the grass will feed from that nitrogen, from those nutrients which have been brought up. So it's like a nutrient pump. So I usually call this my fertilizer factory. This is nutrients for free. I'm benefiting from the animals because I sell the animals. I use them in the field for draft power. Then they're coming to the factory every day to take a bit of nutrient to take to my farm. So the way we manage our pastures, and again leaving trees together with the grass and the shrub, is very important. Not just grassland, but a mixed paddock where you have these deep rooting species bringing free nutrients into the system. This is a very important part of the whole system of how do you grow crops basically for free without any input from outside, high yielding crops. You need to start thinking, where am I going to get the nutrients from? Because the crops need the nutrients. It's not like you can just stop using fertilizer, then everything will be fine and grow nicely. No, that's not what we're saying. You need a system. Where are the nutrients going to come from? And here with a system like this, you have free nitrogen, free urea being produced by the trees. Then the roots of the grass and the trees are bringing up nutrients for free and bringing them in new nutrients into the system for free every year. So if you manage the pasture correctly and your animals, that brings in nutrients for free, if you can see the point. In order to achieve that, we have another problem, because pasture degradation is a very serious issue in Zambia and surrounding countries, in fact all over the world. And what's meant by pasture degradation? If you leave animals in the field for too long in one place, they'll eat the grass. Every time the grass tries to shoot, a new shoot, the animal eats it. Again it tries to shoot, the animal eats it. It tries to shoot until eventually all the energy is gone. And they'll pull that whole plant out by the roots. Then it's gone. That's desertification. Overgrazing, desertification happens. Then you get erosion, no water in the system, no nutrient cycling. So the whole system kind of stops. And which is happening all over the world today, not just in Zambia, but also in Zambia. So the way to get around that, In fact, no, let me backtrack. The other thing, what happens when you leave animals in one big paddock and you just leave them to eat, what they'll do naturally, same as you and I, they'll go for all the nice stuff. As they eat the nice stuff, the stuff that they don't like is being weeded. Like if you want to grow maize in your field, you'll go in the field and you'll put fertilizer or manure on your maize and you'll make sure the other plants are gone.
Yeah.
Effectively, when your animals are in the field, they eat all the good stuff and they put their manure and urine on the bad stuff. So I'll show you an example of what happened when I did that, because I'm also learning, and that's how I did my management for 8 years, previous 8 years. I'll show you the result of it. This is relatively new. This is a 3-year-old pasture which we've been managing in a different way. I'll show you the old pasture, and basically they're eating all the good stuff and fertilizing the bad stuff, which is a problem, because then your productivity goes down and your animals will have poor health, then they'll get disease when the immune system is not strong. They won't grow properly, they won't reproduce properly, they'll fail to give calves every year because the nutrition is not there, because you as a manager or me as a manager haven't understood nature's system properly. You're supposed to eat in one place, you move, you give that grass a chance to grow. Then you have a system where the manure is going on all the grass, whether it's good or bad, all the grass is being fertilized same way and everything is being eaten. So they all have an equal chance to come back. That's when you can have very productive pastures. But if you just leave your animals anyhow, you'll find your pasture is going towards plants and species, the plants which the animals don't like, and eventually your animals won't be able to eat that and they'll get sick and the productivity will be poor, and then we'll complain, no, our animals are getting sick, we have this outbreak, this outbreak. Meanwhile, it's our management.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. So the other issue with sedentary grazing, which is where you leave your animals in one place for too long, is the disease cycle. So most of our herbivore animals, goats, sheep, cattle, are very sensitive to worm infections and tick infections. So you can imagine the animals are grazing here today. The ticks are falling off and the worms are being left in the manure. If I bring them tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, what do you think is going to happen?
You're breeding gems.
They'll be covered in ticks and covered and full of worms. What I need to do is make sure I graze here, tomorrow I'm here, tomorrow I'm there, and I'll do a cycle, which is what happens in nature. Buffalo, they're never eating in the same place. They'll eat today, they'll go, they won't come back for 6 months to a year. So that's what we have to do. And as managers, the people around the world who've managed to get that right are producing way more grass than they can use. And it's good grass, good quality grass. They've brought the pastures back from almost desert back to very productive pastures just by using this system of allowing the grass to recover and moving away from the disease. I've got a friend of mine, actually the man who coined the term holistic management, called Alan Savory.
Yes.
His farm in Zimbabwe is a very good example of how effective planned grazing can be, or holistic management can be. His farm, he bought it with 100 animals. The original owner, it's a big farm, around 2,000 acres, which is almost 800 hectares. It's big. When the original owner bought it, they had something like 1,000 animals. But because of their management, every year they were cutting the number of animals until they had 100 left. My friend took over this farm with 100 animals, immediately brought in another 100 and started the system of planned grazing. 13 years later, he's got enough grass. He's got 800 cows and 200 goats, and he's got enough grass. He says, I need more animals to keep the grass down because there's too much grass. But that's the same land that was failing to feed 100 animals. So now he needs 2,000 animals, he thinks, just to keep the grass down through this system. And they've stopped dipping. So using that system of rotation, following nature's way, following how the buffalo and the wildebeest act, This was a traditional grazing system. If you look at the Ila, all the traditional grazing systems in Zambia, that's exactly what they used to do. One big herd of animals like buffalo, moving around. They eat here, tomorrow they're eating in the next place, tomorrow they don't come back for 6 months. By that time the grass is tall and all the ticks and worms have died. That's basically, what the system consists of.
Like.
Exactly. So, I think for now we're done with the pasture. Unless you have
I could
questions.
ask a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned, first you said it's important to have tiers. The grass, the shrubs, and the tall trees.
Yeah.
Could you just explain again why it's important to have those tiers?
Okay.
The grass, the shrubs, and the trees.
Okay.
Why not just have grass and trees without the shrubs?
I mean, all the species we have, if you imagine this, where we're standing now, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 300 years ago, what would have been here? It's a question. Would have been elephants,
yes,
giraffe,
wildlife.
a lot of wildlife, hippo coming up from the river.
Yeah.
There would have been zebra, there would have been impala, there would have been kudu, bushbuck, waterbuck, all this great diversity of animals. And each one of them is eating at a different level. So, at the moment I only have cows, which is like a buffalo. You can imagine a buffalo or wildebeest, that's my cow. I have a donkey, one donkey only. I'm trying to train her to do work around the farm. That's like my zebra. I think this coming year I'll keep sheep. So that will be more like my impala. So to be like replicating the natural system, and all of them, they'll be moving together to try and have that. I've got pigs as well, which I bring to the pasture. So there's like the warthog or the bush pig. So each one has got what it does. The sheep is eating very low. The cows, they eat the leaves when there's no green grass. They'll eat the leaves of the shrubs. They can't reach the trees. I'm yet to find a substitute for the giraffe. In terms of farming, maybe I'll try a couple of giraffes to put in the system. But they have, so one, it's production of diverse fodder, not just only grass.
Okay.
So they can have leaves, which is very important in this environment. We have no rain for 6 months, 7 months. So the shrubs, they have deep roots, deeper than the grass. So they can go down, take the moisture. Those are the things you'll find growing August, September, October. When the grass is completely dry, at least the shrubs have green leaves. It's improving the diet of the animals. And then again, like I said, in terms of nutrient cycling and moisture release, to seed the clouds, to create the clouds, shrubs and trees are very important. They bring up nutrients from deep. The shrubs, some of these shrubby trees and shrubs, they go down 10, 15 meters. Trees will go down 30. If the water table is very, very, very far, to go down 40 meters to take the water to give the new growth when it gets hot, So it's to do with nutrient cycling and also creating diverse food. And with that diversity, you can look over there, there's an insect sitting on the leaf of the tree. It provides diverse habitat for birds, for snakes, for owls, for bats, which help to protect me in the field, because when the fall armyworm comes as a moth, if I keep the trees around my fields or in my pasture, they'll come from there where they're living and come and eat the fall armyworm moth before it gets a chance to lay its eggs onto my maize, as an example. Same for tuta and all these other diseases and pests which are attacking my field crops. If I don't maintain diversity somewhere for the things that eat those insects to live, then I have to fight them myself. I'm not going to wake up and start catching things at night. But the bats, that's their job. And the owls, they're all benefiting me as a farmer to produce food. Instead of controlling things with chemicals, all I need to do is have shrubs, grasses, trees, not burn them, so they have somewhere to live. As soon as a pest comes, I've got things which are going to eat that pest for free. I don't have to employ those. They're my workers for free. The bats, the lizards, the frogs. Now when you spray or you burn your bush, where are they going to live? They're going to either die in the fire, or they'll go somewhere else, or they'll die because you're spraying. That creates an imbalance. Now you have to inherit the job of the owl, of the bat, of the lizard, of the snake, of the frog, which was eating your insects, but now you've killed them. So now you have to do the job to control the pests instead of nature doing the work for you. So maintenance of habitat is very important. Even some of these things you'll see, you look like it's useless. The cow doesn't eat it. Even the sheep doesn't eat it. There's no use. Why are you keeping it? But there's a very good, you have to have diverse habitat. The bats will only live in certain trees. The birds, the birds that help me in the field eating insects, they need thorny trees so they can be protected from the snakes. Each thing will have its own place in nature. And us as land managers, natural resource managers, farmers, whatever you want to call us, it's our responsibility to understand those things. Basically, what would God have created all these diverse things for? If we were just to come and cut everything and remain with one, what are the rest of them for? There are many uses. Some of them are giving fruit. Some of them are giving medicine. So even the leaves can drop. That's where the mushrooms will grow. So there's benefit for us in many, many ways of maintaining and working together with nature instead of trying to control and, now we want maximum meat production from this paddock, let's cut everything out. Then you miss all those benefits which are there and you could have benefited from, but you didn't see the whole picture. You're just thinking in one term. I want my animal to have more grass. But all the rest of the things then decline. Can your animal grow if it doesn't rain? No. You cut the tree, it won't rain. As an example. But there's many things this diverse nature produces that is very difficult to do unless you let nature do the work for you.